Today, let's talk about one of the hottest brands in the new energy vehicle market today, BYD. Back in May 2011, Elon Musk was asked about his thoughts on BYD in an interview with Bloomberg. Musk's face was full of disdain, as he didn't even consider the company qualified to be Tesla's competitor. At that time, BYD's cars were highly controversial in China. However, today, the company has become the world's largest new energy vehicle enterprise. In 2023, it reclaimed the sales champion title with a sales volume of 3.01 million vehicles, far surpassing Tesla. You might have never seen a BYD car, but you've probably ridden in one of their buses or taxis. Perhaps you've seen their slogan "Build Your Dreams," and thought it was the origin of the name BYD. In fact, the company's name was chosen randomly. The founder never imagined that the business would grow so large. So how did BYD rise to prominence? It all started with its founder, Wang Chuanfu. Wang Chuanfu was born in 1966 in Wangjiazi village, Wuwei City, Anhui Province, a poor village in China. His parents died when he was young, and he had to rely on his older brother, Wang Chuanfu. To ease the family's financial burden, Wang Chuanfu dropped out of school to work. When Wang Chuanfu wanted to do the same, his brother scolded him, saying that he was the only educated person in the family and should focus on his studies. During his high school years, all the miscellaneous fees were covered by his older brother. During his second year of high school, a storm blew down the family's tiled house. Since his brother couldn't afford to repair it, he had to borrow money from neighbors. It was in this environment that Wang Chuanfu studied hard and was admitted to the Metallurgical Physical Chemistry Department of Central South University. He showed great talent in his studies and was recommended for postgraduate studies, where he entered the Beijing Research Institute of Nonferrous Metals of the Chinese Academy of Sciences to study battery technology. His mentor was Li Guoxuan, who greatly admired his student and invited Wang Chuanfu to join the institute after graduation. After joining the institute, Wang Chuanfu's performance was outstanding. He was promoted to deputy director of the institute within 2 years, making him the youngest department-level cadre in the institute at the age of 26. In 1993, the institute sent Wang Chuanfu to a battery company in Shenzhen to work as the general manager. At that time, Shenzhen had a strong entrepreneurial atmosphere, encouraging people from all walks of life to start businesses. Wang Chuanfu was inspired by this atmosphere. At that time, there was a popular handheld phone called the brick phone, which cost thousands of dollars, and the nickel-cadmium battery inside was worth hundreds of dollars. As an expert in battery technology, Wang Chuanfu easily calculated that the profit margin of this battery was very high. Coincidentally, he learned from the news that Japan, the world's leader in the battery industry, had announced the discontinuation of nickel-cadmium battery production for environmental reasons. This meant that there would be a shortage of batteries in the market, which presented a huge business opportunity. Wang Chuanfu proposed to the company to research and produce nickel-cadmium batteries, but he found that he had no authority to interfere with the company's development strategy. After much consideration, Wang Chuanfu made a bold decision to resign and start his own business. This decision was not well received at the time, as he had quickly risen to become a national cadre at a young age, a job that seemed to have limitless prospects to outsiders. When he tried to attract investment, banks also did not support his project. In the end, Wang Chuanfu turned to his cousin, Lu Xiangyang, who had worked in a bank for over 10 years before resigning in 1993 to start his own business in real estate and textiles. With his talent in finance, Lu Xiangyang had become financially independent within 2 years. Lu Xiangyang was eventually convinced to invest $300,000 in Wang Chuanfu's venture, which turned out to be the most successful investment of his life. In February 1995, Wang Chuanfu opened a factory with 20 employees. However, when registering the company name, he encountered obstacles. At that time, there were many registered companies in Shenzhen. Wang Chuanfu originally wanted a 2-word name, such as YD, but many names were already taken. He had to choose a 3-word name. Considering that the company name would be alphabetized at exhibitions for promotion, Wang Chuanfu initially thought of the name AYD. However, this name was also taken. Finally, only the name BYD, which sounded a bit odd, was available, so Wang Chuanfu chose it. This name had no meaning at first and was chosen purely for registration purposes. Later, as the company grew, it was packaged as Build Your Dreams. Initially, BYD's factory was very small, and all employees lived together in cramped conditions. Despite the harsh conditions, everyone was passionate. At that time, Japan controlled 90% of the global battery market. To maintain its monopoly, The Japanese government also banned the export of battery technology. So, to produce batteries, one either had to buy battery cells from Japan for simple assembly, or import Japan's automatic production line. However, a fully automated production line for nickel-cadmium batteries cost over $1 million, which was far more than Liu Xiangyang's $300,000 investment. Therefore, Wang Chuanfu divided the production line into multiple fixed processes and assigned 50 workers to different positions to perform spot welding, testing, labeling, and other tasks manually. By replacing automation with manual labor, the quality of the batteries was comparable to those from Japan, but the cost was 40% cheaper. The factory could produce 4,000 rechargeable batteries per day, and BYD adopted a large-scale recruitment strategy. In just 6 months, the company expanded to 300 employees. Moreover, BYD's technical level was not inferior. At that time, employees in the quality department discovered that the positive electrode material of the battery sometimes did not adhere to the newly purchased nickel mesh, affecting the product quality. No one in the department could solve this problem, so they tried calling Wang Chuanfu's office. Wang Chuanfu immediately rushed to the quality department and gave a lecture on the spot, explaining the battery structure, the properties, and functions of nickel mesh, and the solution for over an hour. The employees were stunned, as they had not expected the boss of a small factory to be so knowledgeable about technology. After all, Wang Chuanfu had specialized in battery technology at the Research Institute, so BYD did quite well in subsequent research and quality control. Through its inexpensive nickel-cadmium batteries, BYD quickly opened up the market. In 1997, a financial storm swept through Asia, causing many banks to go bankrupt and factories to close down. The market price of batteries plummeted by 20% to 40%. Japanese manufacturers suffered losses as a result. However, BYD, with its cost advantage, secured huge orders from companies like Philips, Panasonic, Sony, and General Electric, selling 140 million batteries. Within just 3 years of its establishment, BYD had captured nearly 40% of the global market share in nickel-cadmium batteries. Afterwards, Wang Chuanfu set his sights on lithium batteries. Compared to other batteries, lithium batteries have a high specific energy, making them small and lightweight. Japan was the first country to develop lithium batteries. In 1992, Sony successfully developed lithium-ion batteries, which significantly reduced the weight and size of portable electronic devices such as mobile phones, laptops, and calculators. However, Japan had stricter technical protections for lithium batteries, requiring foreign manufacturers to pass audits to import them. The main reason BYD succeeded in nickel-cadmium batteries was that the Japanese had given up on this market. But the situation would be different for lithium batteries. Wang Chuanfu once went to Japan with hundreds of thousands of dollars to visit their lithium battery workshops and purchase equipment. However, even a simple cutting machine would cost $5 million, and a complete lithium battery production line was priced at $100 million. As a technician, Wang Chuanfu knew what a reasonable price was, and it was clear that the Japanese companies simply did not want to sell to him. So, BYD secretly developed lithium battery technology in the laboratory for 3 years. Initially, BYD made a small slurry coating machine with a coating width of only 20 centimeters. As the equipment improved, there was finally hope for producing lithium batteries. Unable to afford a cutting machine for electrode plates, workers used paper cutting knives for cutting. BYD established the world's first manual lithium battery production line. Still employing a large workforce, over 2,000 workers were able to produce 100,000 lithium batteries per day without clean rooms or drying rooms. The cost of each battery was as low as 10 cents, 1/5 of the price of Japanese manufacturers. With its price advantage, BYD won a huge order from the mobile phone giant Motorola to supply lithium batteries for their phones. When Motorola received BYD's batteries, they found that the quality was excellent, yet the price was only 1/3 of that of Japanese manufacturers. They were very curious about how BYD could produce such high-quality batteries at such a low price. As a result, they sent people to visit BYD's factory. When they arrived at the production workshop, they were shocked to find that such precision work was entirely done manually. After seeing Motorola find a cheap supplier, another mobile phone giant Nokia couldn't sit still. They sent people to visit BYD and found that the battery material was scooped out of the slurry with a spoon for coating. Nokia, which had never seen this production method before, could only take some batteries back to Finland for testing. The test results were excellent, so 2 years later, BYD also became a supplier to Nokia. During those years, As mobile phones became more and more popular, BYD, relying on lithium battery supplies, was able to earn over $1 billion a year and became the world's second-largest battery manufacturer. In July 2002, BYD went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The following year, it surpassed the Japanese conglomerate Sanyo to become the world's largest battery manufacturer. Subsequently, BYD capitalized on its success and entered the IT contract manufacturing business, becoming the world's second-largest contract manufacturer after Foxconn, just behind. At this point, Wang Chuanfu began to worry about the company's future because the outsourcing business only made money for the brand owner, who took most of the profits. Moreover, the barrier to entry for the outsourcing business was not high. The reason BYD could defeat Japanese manufacturers was that the labor costs in China were much lower than in Japan. If a company with even lower labor costs appeared, the competition in this industry would only intensify. Therefore, after BYD went public, Wang Chuanfu decided to enter a new industry, the automotive industry. However, making cars was not something you could do just because you had money. You needed a license. The fastest way to obtain a license was to acquire a company that already had one. In October 2002, Wang Chuanfu heard that Qinchuan Automobile Company in Xi'an, due to poor management, was planning to sell its shares, which greatly interested him. He wanted to acquire the company. However, he faced unprecedented resistance. When Hong Kong investors heard that Wang Chuanfu wanted to make cars, they thought he was delusional. They invested in BYD because they believed in the battery industry. At that time, the battery industry's market growth rate was as high as 80% annually, which was a very promising sector. In contrast, the global automotive industry was already very mature, with an annual growth rate of only 3% to 5%, making it a fiercely competitive industry. Additionally, at that time, the Chinese automotive market was dominated by imported cars and joint ventures. BYD had no experience in making cars, and it was possible that even before the cars were launched, the money raised would be spent. Despite this, Wang Chuanfu went ahead with his plan. On January 23, 2003, BYD announced the acquisition of 77% of the shares of Qinchuan Automobile for 269 million yuan. And at that time, Wang Chuanfu did not even know how to drive. Angry investors started selling off their stocks, causing BYD's stock to plummet by 26% in just 3 days. Wang Chuanfu was not an impulsive person. On the contrary, he was very rational and pragmatic. He had visited a car mold factory in Japan, where he learned that a car has over 10,000 parts, each requiring its own mold. He estimated that Japanese manufacturers spent around $100 million to $200 million to develop a car, while Chinese manufacturers only needed $20 million. With such a cost advantage, the future of Chinese car companies was very promising. Furthermore, BYD's strong cash flow gave Wang Chuanfu confidence. Qinchuan Automobile had an annual output value of less than $100 million, and it was basically profitable, losing at most $20 million in a year, while the profit from BYD's batteries in a quarter was enough to cover that. So, after the acquisition was completed, Wang Chuanfu had no more concerns and began to learn to drive and study cars intensively. In the same year, a company called Tesla was founded, and in February of the following year, Musk invested $6.3 million in it and became its chairman. Wang Chuanfu, like Musk, said many things in the early days that seemed crazy. He said he wanted BYD to become the world's largest car manufacturer by 2025. How would he do it? Wang Chuanfu said that although the automotive industry involves many disciplines, most of the technologies have matured after more than 100 years of development overseas. Although China's automobile industry started late, it can gain a lot of inspiration from excellent foreign products, which will reduce the need for extensive research and development. Some question that this would at most allow China to follow behind the automotive giants. So how could they talk about being number one in the world? Wang Chuanfu continued, saying that this was only the practice of the internal combustion engine era. Although China's current automobile ownership is very low, the pressure on energy and environmental protection is very high. China's petroleum resources are very scarce, and with economic development, the country's dependence on overseas oil will increase, leading to problems in national strategic security. Therefore, China's demand for new energy vehicles will inevitably be huge. In the future, they will replace traditional cars. BYD's real idea is to develop new energy vehicles, combined with their own battery industry, to convert cars to electric drive. The technological advantage accumulated by automotive giants over a century in internal combustion engine technology will disappear, and BYD, by entering the electric vehicle field earlier, will even gain a technological advantage. Once this advantage is obtained, becoming number one in the world is not just a dream. This foresight dialogue took place in 2003. However, the first car BYD made was quite a failure. At that time, BYD did not have any automotive designer, so the first model was outsourced to another company for design. It took a year and cost millions. But when it was unveiled at the exhibition, it was so ugly that no dealer was interested. After the conference, angry Wang Chuanfu took a sledgehammer and smashed the 316, which cost $20 million to develop, into pieces. After careful consideration, he decided not to launch the 316. After that, he never outsourced car design again, deciding to design and develop independently. He invited renowned domestic car design expert Lian Yubot to set up a research and development center in Shanghai. They bought most of the popular models on the market, disassembled them for research, and after extensive analysis and research, they unanimously decided to learn from a best-selling classic car model worldwide, the Toyota Corolla. Since its inception, the Corolla has won the Japanese domestic car sales championship for 33 consecutive years. Internationally, the Corolla has been highly praised in over 140 countries and regions worldwide. In 1997, it replaced the Volkswagen Beetle as the world's best-selling model. In September 2005, BYD launched the F3 model to the market. The appearance of this car was quite shocking because it looked so much like the Corolla that at first glance, people thought it was just a Corolla with a different badge. There were even rumors that the parts of the two cars could be completely interchangeable. However, Toyota did not initiate a patent lawsuit because before building the car, BYD had searched through all the patents. As long as there was any slight technical red line, they would make all modifications. They bought nearly 50 used cars from major brands, disassembled them into parts for study, and learned non-patented technology. For example, the car's exterior has 5 aspects. BYD might have 4 aspects exactly the same as the Corolla, but the remaining aspect is completely different, so it cannot be considered infringement. So while the front of the F3 looked like a Corolla, the rear was copied from the Fit, and the waistline came from the Vios. In that era, imitation design was also the only choice for many Chinese car companies. While imitating, the F3 was also cheaper, with a price of less than $10,000. It was not only half the price of the Corolla but also much cheaper than other cars of the same level on the market. So it was quite popular with consumers and sold well in China in 2006, with sales exceeding 100,000 in just 1 year, and 5,000 units were exported. In the early days, BYD imitated Toyota cars precisely because they admired Toyota the most. In addition to its excellent product quality and design, BYD also learned a management model from Toyota called vertical integration. Simply put, all components are produced internally, without relying on external suppliers. An automobile is composed of tens of thousands of parts, and the more common practice in the automotive industry is for each factory to make its own components without any connection. Car companies just provide designs and then order parts for assembly. Toyota has taken this to the extreme. Except for glass and tires, it can produce everything from engines to chassis, bodies, assembly, and interior. This not only ensures production speed and quality, but also lowers the cost of manufacturing as sales volume increases. In addition, China's labor costs are lower than Japan's. For example, 95% of the work for making car molds still relies on manual labor. A ton of molds costs $80,000 in Japan, but only $20,000 in China. Since the cost of making a car mold accounts for 1/3 of the total cost, BYD can achieve such low production costs. On August 9, 2007, in front of the leaders of the Shenzhen municipal government and national-level media reporters, Wang Chuanfu ambitiously proposed a strategy with 2 goals. One strategy was to enter the field of hybrid and pure electric vehicles based on their own battery industry. The 2 goals were for BYD to achieve the highest production and sales volume in China by 2015 and to stabilize as the global number 1 by 2025. After Wang Chuanfu finished speaking, there was not even applause at the scene, and the atmosphere was awkward because, in 2007, such words sounded like a joke. BYD was only ranked 19th in China, so talking about global dominance was laughable. As for electric vehicles, it was even more of a pipe dream. Even the large American company General Motors failed with its electric vehicles, so what made BYD think they could succeed? In 1996, General Motors introduced the first mass-produced electric vehicle, the EV1, which had excellent performance. However, due to the high manufacturing costs, it was only available for lease at the time. Nevertheless, it was very popular, and many celebrities and politicians began leasing the vehicle, drawing more attention to electric cars. However, this threatened the interests of the oil giants. After all, if everyone drove electric cars, who would buy gasoline? So, they colluded with the government and senior executives at General Motors to destroy the EV1, forcing all EV1s on the market to be scrapped. Electric vehicle enthusiasts and environmental groups protested, and several documentaries were made condemning this plan. One of the designers of the EV1, Alan Carconi, founded a company and made an electric car called the T0, which was sold in small quantities to some enthusiasts. One entrepreneur who bought the T0 liked it very much and acquired the company, renaming it Tesla, and in 2008, they released their first product, the electric sports car Roadster. So General Motors was the pioneer of modern electric vehicles, but it ultimately contributed to Tesla's success. Unlike the United States' aggressive suppression of electric vehicles, China had a completely different attitude towards electric vehicles. As early as 1992, Qian Xuesen wrote to Vice Premier Zhou Jiehua, suggesting that China's automobile industry should skip the gasoline and diesel stages and immediately develop a battery-powered car plan. Vice Premier Zhou replied, stating that they had already arranged for key technology research on electric vehicles in the 8-5 National Key Science and Technology Program. It can be said that Wang Chuanfu's view of electric vehicles was not blind. The government's policy formulation and financial subsidies for new energy vehicles provided substantial support. In 2006, BYD launched the first F3 electric car with a lithium iron phosphate battery. However, there was no market environment at that time, so this car was not launched. On March 4, 2008, at the Geneva International Motor Show in Switzerland, BYD unveiled the new energy vehicle model F3 DM, which not only used a lithium iron phosphate battery but also adopted the world's first DM dual-power hybrid system. There was a button on it that allowed the car to switch between hybrid and pure electric modes. Moreover, this car did not rely on professional charging stations. It could be charged by plugging into a household socket. However, at that time, there were only a few people buying electric cars. As a pioneer in domestic new energy vehicles, BYD explored this new industry mostly on its own for a long time. The following year, China included new energy vehicles in one of its 7 major strategic emerging industries and initiated subsidies for private purchases of new energy vehicles in 5 cities: Shanghai, Changchun, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, and Hefei. It was at that time that the world's richest man and stock guru Warren Buffett suddenly announced to the outside world that he would acquire a 10% stake in BYD for $230 million. In fact, the first to discover BYD was Buffett's longtime partner Charlie Munger. Buffett recalled that Munger had called him 3 times. The first time he said, "If you don't buy BYD, you will miss out on someone like Henry Ford," and I didn't buy it. The second time he said, "If you still don't buy BYD, you will miss out on a great figure like Thomas Edison," and I didn't buy it. The third time he said, "If you don't buy it again, you will miss out on someone like Bill Gates." So I bought it. He sent his assistant, David Sokol, to visit BYD's factory for inspection and had in-depth discussions with Wang Chuanfu and his management team. Sokol was impressed by their research and development capabilities and their ability to commercialize research results. Shortly after Sokol returned to the United States, Buffett expressed his intention to invest $500 million in BYD. After hearing this news, Wang Chuanfu and others were also very surprised but quickly calmed down. If they invested $500 million, they would have to give up 20% of the shares, which would dilute the management team's shares and weaken their control over the company. Wang Chuanfu replied, apologizing that he could not accept such a large-scale investment. Buffett, who had been famous for decades, was rarely rejected for an investment, but instead of being disappointed, he became more interested in investing. Later, Buffett told a reporter from Fortune magazine that this was a person who did not want to sell his company, and such a person was worth investing in. Later, after an internal assessment, BYD decided to sell 10% of its shares to Buffett. On September 29, 2008, Buffett's Mid-American Energy Holdings Company and BYD held a press conference in Hong Kong, announcing that Mid-American Energy would invest $223 million to buy 225 million BYD shares at a price of HK$8 per share. This caused BYD's stock price to soar by 60% in just 4 trading days. By 2009, BYD had become the sales champion among Chinese domestic brands. Just 1 year after Buffett's investment, BYD's car sales increased by 170% year-on-year, and its stock price soared to 87 Hong Kong dollars, more than 10 times its original price. Hearing this, you might think that BYD was about to take off from here, but what people didn't expect was that BYD was about to face its darkest moment. In 2010, at an auto show in Zhengzhou, Hunan Province, BYD's fraudulent dealership's banner attracted everyone's attention, signaling that BYD's sales system had completely lost control. The outbreak of sales in 2009 gave BYD full confidence to begin aggressive expansion. They planned to increase car sales from 448,000 to 1 million within a year. To achieve this, the company established 4 sales networks from A1 to A4, totaling 1,200 sales outlets, and the number of employees surged from 90,000 to 180,000. The huge expansion costs increased its debt ratio to 60.1%. To achieve the sales target, BYD implemented an extremely aggressive business policy. As long as a deposit was paid, anyone could become a BYD dealer and was encouraged to purchase more cars. However, sometimes dealers paid large sums for cars, but BYD failed to deliver them on time, often delaying for 2 or 3 months, leading to the collapse of the dealer's capital chain. When BYD increased its production volume, rapid production led to a decrease in BYD's quality control level. The cars had various quality issues, and consumer complaints grew louder. Dealers faced inventory backlogs, but BYD's sales policy did not consider the dealers, causing many people to suffer huge losses and leading to protests from more than 300 dealers. Xia Jibing, deputy general manager of BYD Automobile Sales Company, resigned, stating that his pursuit of quick success and instant benefits had misled the company and the sales team, and he apologized for it. Wang Chuanfu later admitted that the company was indeed blinded by sales volume. At that time, most of the meeting time was spent discussing how to increase production capacity, and only 3 minutes were spent on quality issues. Another problem was the downside of the vertical integration model. As mentioned earlier, vertical integration can keep profits in one's own hands, which is its advantage. However, many large companies still abandon this model because its disadvantages are terrifying. Since all the parts of a car are produced and sold by the company itself and are basically used internally by the company, there is no market competition, so there is a lack of awareness of market competition. Because no matter what quality is produced, as long as it passes the quality control, it is okay. As a result, quality and corruption problems arose. Sometimes, the head of the parts factory would invite colleagues from the quality control department and the engineering institute to various banquets and entertainment venues under the guise of team building to bribe them in order to pass the internal inspection. Under various influences, BYD's growth rate fell by 150% in 2010, with car sales reaching 520,000 units. This sales figure remained unmatched by BYD for the next 10 years and was also the year when consumer dissatisfaction with car quality was at its highest. Following this, BYD entered a 3-year adjustment period. Wang Chuanfu, in a moment of painful reflection, initiated sweeping reforms within the company. Firstly, he streamlined the complex sales network into what is now known as the Red Network and the Blue Network, the predecessors of the current Dynasty Network and Ocean Network. Regarding quality control, Wang Chuanfu demanded that the average number of faults per vehicle within 2 years be less than 1, and he offered consumers a 4-year or 100,000 kilometer extended warranty. He also required all departments and components of the company to be open to external supply, providing them to other car manufacturers. If BYD's components were not as competitive as those on the market, he would shut down the department, stating that competing only with oneself, not with peers, would lead to loss of competitiveness. He believed that true capability lay in making money in the market, not just within BYD. To address the poor sales of electric cars, BYD introduced a solution for urban public transportation electrification in 2010, targeting the public transportation and taxi markets. These areas, being under government control, faced much less resistance in promoting under the new energy policy. Moreover, with fixed bus routes, the government could establish a large-scale charging station network, laying the foundation for future private electric vehicle popularization. A bus carries about 220,000 passengers per year, while a taxi can carry several thousand or even tens of thousands of passengers. If these two areas were to be electrified, it would serve as a good demonstration, building trust in electric vehicles as people use them more. In 2010, BYD developed its first electric bus, the K9, which began operating in Shenzhen. By 2017, Shenzhen's public transport had been fully electrified, and in 2018, taxis were also fully electrified. At the same time, BYD began exporting electric buses. In 2015, BYD unveiled its first pure electric double-decker bus in London, where Chinese leaders and Prince William and Kate Middleton were once aboard for inspection. In October 2017, BYD's electric bus factory in Lancaster, California, became the first wholly owned Chinese bus factory in the United States. Today, BYD's electric buses can be seen in more than 50 countries and regions worldwide, with a market share of 26% in Europe and 50% in the UK. In the US market, BYD has almost monopolized the electric bus market. The channels and brand recognition established by these commercial vehicles will pave the way for BYD's household cars to lead the market. In 2012, a white plug-in hybrid sedan was launched in Beijing. With an acceleration time of 5.9 seconds per 100 kilometers, a top speed of 185 kilometers per hour, and a comprehensive fuel consumption of only 1.6 liters. This is the BYD hybrid model Qin DM, the first model of the Dynasty series and the origin of BYD's cars, Qin Xuan. It also symbolizes the ambition of BYD to establish an empire in the field of new energy, echoing the first unified dynasty in Chinese history, the Qin Dynasty. In April of the same year, Tesla made a strong entry into the Chinese market, quickly capturing a group of consumers with its fashionable design, leading electric technology, and strong marketing capabilities. In 2014, Tesla's Model S began to enter the Chinese market, and Tesla announced its technical patents. However, incidents of self-ignition and brake failure occurred several times with Tesla's Model S, sparking controversy online. Shortly afterward, in an interview with 21st Century Business Herald, Wang Chuanfu was asked about his views on the matter. He said, "We do not want Tesla to have problems. Only when they do well can we benefit." In his view, Tesla and BYD belong to the same technical camp, and his goal has never been to surpass Tesla but rather Toyota and the entire fuel vehicle system. He hoped that more competitors in the new energy vehicle sector would elevate the country's policies, improve supporting facilities, and expand market share, allowing BYD to sell more. A year later, driven by national policies, China's new energy vehicle development entered the fast lane. At the end of 2014, Xpeng Motors was established in Guangzhou, NIO was registered in Shanghai, and in July 2015, Li Auto debuted in Beijing. More and more new energy vehicles are emerging in China. BYD also accelerated its efforts. In 2015, the second vehicle in the Dynasty series, the Tang, was launched, followed by the pure electric vehicle model Qin EV in 2016. In the early years, BYD's cars were known for their strong performance and high cost-effectiveness. However, a fatal flaw in brand appeal was the unattractive appearance of their cars. It was rare to see their own distinctive designs in BYD cars, let alone setting trends. If you want to sell high-end models, the appearance of the car is very important. Wang Chuanfu also began to attach importance to this issue. He directly hired top designers, such as Wolfgang Egger, who had served well-known automobile brands such as Seat, Alfa Romeo, and Audi. Audi's A1, A3, A6, Q7, and R8 were all designed by him. Now he serves as BYD's global design director. On September 25, 2017, shortly after the launch of the BYD Song Max, it was named the best stylish family MPV at the Guangzhou Auto Show. Its LED dragon eye headlights, dragon whisker lines, and dragon mouth grille caught the attention of mainstream media and consumers alike. This design language was officially named the Dragon Face. Surprisingly, this car completely abandoned alphabetical logos, opting instead for Chinese characters. At that time, no Chinese car brand had done this because Chinese cars were synonymous with low-end vehicles, and using Chinese characters might not seem upscale enough. However, Wang Chuanfu personally decided to use Chinese characters. In an interview, he mentioned that he initially started the business to make money, but after achieving financial freedom, his motivation changed. Once, when he went to the United States, he felt uncomfortable because the other party kept asking him to show his return ticket. He was not someone who wanted to stay in the US and not leave. He came to the US to invest and set up factories, to solve the employment problem in the US. He felt that being questioned like this was an insult to his dignity. In 2017, the Song DM and Song EV were successively launched, and in 2018, the Yuan EV was launched. BYD has always believed that technology is king and innovation is paramount. Therefore, BYD has invested heavily in research and development in new technologies. In 2020, BYD introduced a groundbreaking technology, the Blade battery. The Blade battery has a significant advantage, leading the industry in safety. In the most stringent industry standard nail penetration test, a ternary lithium battery quickly caught fire and exploded after being pierced by a high-temperature steel needle, while the Blade battery showed no reaction after being punctured by a steel needle. At that time, electric vehicles were often associated with news of spontaneous combustion, causing public safety concerns. This was a major reason why people did not buy electric vehicles. So, more than 3 months later, the first car equipped with the Blade battery, the Han EV, was launched. It was quite shocking to the public. For months after its launch, the monthly sales volume exceeded 10,000. In 2021, BYD released the Qin Plus DMI, Song Plus DMI, and Tang DMI. DMI is a super hybrid technology developed by BYD. Driving a BYD DMI hybrid car feels almost the same as driving a pure electric car, but it can also refuel, and its fuel consumption is particularly low. The price of the car is also lower than other fuel cars. In 2022, at the new car launch event, BYD announced an important CTB technology, which is to directly integrate the battery pack into the body of the car, realizing the integration of the battery and the body of the car. In this year, BYD's new energy sales ranked first globally. On November 16th, BYD's 3 millionth new energy vehicle rolled off the production line, making it the first new energy vehicle company in China to achieve this milestone. It took BYD 13 years from the first vehicle to the millionth vehicle, 1 year from the millionth vehicle to the second millionth vehicle, and only half a year from the second millionth vehicle to the third millionth vehicle. In 2023, BYD launched a new brand Yangwang. The first model, Yangwang U8, is priced at $150,000 and is aimed at European luxury car brands. In addition to luxurious materials, their most prominent feature is unique technology. Yangwang cars are equipped with 4 motors. Each wheel can control speed independently. If you encounter congestion or narrow roads, you can even turn it in place. Thanks to the car's good sealing, the U8 also has an emergency floating mode. Underwater, the 4-wheel motors provide power to the wheels, operating like boat oars. By adjusting the speed difference of the 4 wheels, it can achieve turning and turning in water. Not only can each motor be controlled independently, but even the suspension can be controlled independently. It has many sensors that actively judge the road surface, adjusting the softness and hardness of the air suspension when bumps are detected, giving passengers a smooth ride. Using a higher level suspension, the Yangwang U9 has stronger active control over the body. At the launch event, it was shown dancing to music and even being able to jump in place. More importantly, it can stabilize the body in 3 directions: horizontal, longitudinal, and vertical, and even if one wheel falls off, it can continue to drive smoothly. Today, BYD's technological progress is advancing rapidly, and it is no longer the brand that merely imitated and captured the market with price advantages. Every time you see their product launches, they bring surprises. The brand they admired the most in the past, Toyota, has also reached a cooperation agreement with BYD. They have jointly developed the electric vehicle BZ3, using BYD's Blade battery, electric motor, and electronic control system. This means that over the past 20 years, the cars made by BYD have evolved from Toyota cars with BYD logos to BYD cars with Toyota logos.